What's up, everyone? We've got today this second gen Dodge Ram. Got the big 5.9 in it, but it doesn't run. Customer was on his way to work and the truck died. He's pretty certain it's the fuel pump. I'm also pretty certain it's the fuel pump based off of how it's acting. So we're going to show you a couple quick tests you can run on your fuel pump to determine if your fuel pump is your problem. Come on, let's show you. All right, so let's start with the symptoms this truck is having right now. So, and cycle the key a few more times. Well, I guess this truck's gonna act a fool today. What I was trying to show you was that yesterday when we were pulling this in the shop, if you cycle the key and go to start it, it would start and then kind of stutter and die. It would do just about every time. Kind of giving that fuel pump a little kickstart every time you'd cycle the key. I haven't tried it, but the customer stated when it broke down on him, they were able to get it to stay running as long as they were beating on the bottom of the fuel tank. Pretty indicative of a fuel pump that's gone bad. So the foolproof test, though, is to go down to the fuel pump with a test light and check for powers and grounds. Now, you don't want to just use the digital LED test lights or anything of that. A wire can carry voltage, but not carry amperage. Okay? Remember that. If you have an LED test light and you test it and you're getting 12 volts, it may get 12 volts, but it might not be able to carry that load. Okay? If you're getting 12 volts there, but then you plug a load into it and you get nothing, chances are the wire's broke somewhere. So we always want to load test the circuit. And so we would use it's usually about a 1, 2, sometimes 3 amp light. In my case, I use like a 9005 headlight bulb. It's about 2.5 amp load. Fuel pump puts out just a smidge more than that, but if it can carry 2.5 amps, it's not the wire. So we'll go down there, we'll load test that circuit, verify we're getting power, and if we're getting power, the fuel pump's no good. So let's get down under the truck. All right, got it up in the air. We got our battery maintainer on here because we have the key on. So for this testing, we're gonna cheat and use a scan tool to activate the fuel pump while we're underneath the truck. If you're at home doing this, you can cycle the key off and then back on. And that fuel pump should kick on, or your light, if the fuel pump is bad, would kick on for a few seconds before shutting back off. So in this case, we have it up on the lift. We don't have access to the key easily, but our scan tool, we can manually control the fuel pump with that scan tool. So let me get the scan tool set up and we'll get you going. Pretty straightforward on this. Here is your fuel tank. You got your strap that bolts in right up there. Move my thumb out of the way for you. Right there. That's one strap. Here's the second strap. Top here, here's your fuel pump. So you got your fuel pump and your vent lines. I guess if you had skinny enough hands, you could probably get up in there and test that plug before dropping the tank. But again, I'm about 99% certain our fuel pump is our issue. So we're just gonna go ahead and get it down. Now, this is the wires that run down this way, comes over and then up and around to the fuel pump. Now, when you're bringing this fuel tank down, those lines usually have just enough slack in them that you can bring it down enough to get your hands up in there and then disconnect those lines. But be careful coming down. You don't want to overextend or pull on those plastic nylon fuel lines and wires too much. And then on this side, we have our filler neck and vent that come up. Now, true to classic northern Rust Belt area, these things are crusty. And then they attach up in here. There. Oh, let me get you down out of there. And there. So, and then fuel pump lives here. We actually might be able to get to that plug from here, but... Alright, so a little correction before we drop the tank. Figured we should check this. There's our plug for the fuel pump. We were able to get to it. We shoved our head up in here, above there, got to the plug. We got it back probed on the power and ground for the fuel pump. Your test leads should have a fuse in it, just to be on the safe side, always fused. And then here's our light. Okay, so that light will put a load on the system. We come down in here, holy Moses. Assuming you can see that on screen. This is the control for the fuel pump. We will hit start. There you go. Now it cycles the fuel pump on and off, but you can even hear the, you probably won't, but I could even hear the relay up in the front clicking. So that proved that we are getting power to our fuel pump. All right, now that we got the fuel tank out, you're gonna get this plastic ring that holds it down. You're gonna unscrew that. They make special tools for these, but if you don't have one, very gingerly and gently use a flathead screwdriver or pry bar. I prefer a pry bar. It's got a larger surface, less likely to rip the plastic all up. And you're just gonna work that guy loose until you unscrew it and you get your fuel pump up here. So, I also, before taking the ring off, I take an air gun and blow all of this out. Get all the dirt off so you don't drop a bunch of dirt down the tank. Now, you're going to take your fuel pump out. That's going to just gently come up. We're going to get you set up on a camera first, on a pod. Now, we're going to take this guy up out. So these actually have springs on them. So depending on different size tanks and different depths, this will always be sitting on the bottom of the fuel pump, will always be sitting on the bottom of the tank. Whoa! We just got fuel everywhere. On my foot. Let that drip dry for a second. We're gonna go get something and put it in. Okay. A little rant lesson, I guess. So we just showed you, we got the fuel pump out. We're getting ready, we're getting the new one ready to go in. And we go, something's different here. Something's different. It's blocked off. And I know what you're going to say. Well, just block it off. Okay. But then you look at this. This is your float that goes on the side. Something's different here. Now, this is a 35-gallon tank. This truck came with a smaller tank and a large tank. The large tank was a 35-gallon. I don't recall what the smaller tank was. So when you look the parts up for this truck, you get a listing for the 35-gallon fuel pump or the fuel pump for the smaller tank. Now, That's where this little issue begins. And this is what I suspect has happened. Here's your part number. That is the part number for the 35-gallon tank. This is the 35-gallon tank. That fuel pump is actually the fuel pump for the smaller tank. Now we noticed when we opened the box, it wasn't packaged like it was unopened. It was clearly an open box. My suspicion is someone or some shop did not know what size tank they had, so they ordered both fuel pumps. And then when they went to put them in, they put the correct one in for their application. But they had both of them out of the box to see which one went in it. And then when they reboxed it to send it back to the store, they boxed it wrong. So this is a little rant, I guess, that if you're gonna do that, and I've done it, I've bought, you know, both part numbers, not knowing which one I would need, and use the one I needed. However, make sure when you rebox it, you box it correctly, because now we have this all taken apart, and we're ready for a new fuel pump. But we have to order an exchange for the correct fuel pump, and it won't come in until this evening. So, when returning parts, box them correctly. Put them back in the right box. That way you don't end up like me getting screwed over. Because now we're getting delayed on this. And this is the reason why it takes so long to get these cars out of the shop and get them done. Because we don't always get the right parts. And sometimes that's my mistake because I ordered the wrong part. And sometimes it's because someone boxed the parts wrong. And other times it's because the part store shipped the wrong parts. So, please be thoughtful. Box it back right. Thanks. Actually, the wife said that kind of reminded her of the old saying from the video store. You young kids won't remember this. We remember it. Blockbuster, Family Video, you know, where you go and rent your VHS tapes. Please be kind and rewind. That's kind of what that reminds her of. Put it back in the right box. Thanks. Now with that little rant out of the way, let's show you our next thing we're doing on this. And this U-joint over here, now you can actually see this one a little bit better. So, we're doing U-joints in this girl. We're gonna get them tires off, get those hubs out. Let's get the front taken apart while we wait on a fuel pump. Alright, now it's hung up out of the way. Holy Moses. A little something dragging on the inside of that rotor. Yeah, clicking your hand is that U-joint. Alright, now that we have the right part, see, we no longer have that port. It's blocked off just like the original one. So, let's get some side cutters and get this guy off of there. Don't forget your new seal. Now, those seals can sometimes be a pain. There we go, that one wasn't bad. Get that to sit all the way down. Now we can install our ring again. Now sometimes you might have to kind of have the fuel pump up a little bit to get that ring started on there. In this case, we do. There we go. Well, they put that hose clamp right in the way. There we go. All right. All right. Now you'll see on the tank we have these 2 notches, and then on the pump we have this little indicator eyelet. That's to help you line up this pump when you're putting it in there, because you want your pickup for your fuel sending, the little float that tells you how much fuel you have in the tank. You want to make sure that is in the correct spot in the tank, because if it's not, it can end up reading inaccurately, or it'll hang up on something inside the tank. And we don't want that. Come on. These can be a bear sometimes to get lined up and not cross-threading these plastic ones. Yeah, come on now. Work with me. Still not going on straight.
A little longer than a few minutes later.
Okay, now finally, after fiddling and fiddling, we finally got that ring down and got it on there tight. So now we can get this back in here. Get it strapped back down, get it all hooked up, and then verify our repair, get it started, make sure the truck runs. And then we can go back over there. I mean, this won't be out of order for y'all, but it'll be out of order for me. We'll go back to that U-joint. We'd started it, and then the fuel pump showed up, and then another customer showed up, and busy days. Busy days. All right. Let's get it in there. All right. We got that fuel pump up in there. Fuel gauge is working properly. We're going to cycle the key a couple times. And let's see if it starts. There you go. Now it runs. Now, let's finish up the U-joints. Okay, we last left off. I went ahead and took the liberty of taking this apart. These hubs on here, they tend to rust together, and they can be a real pain to get off of there. So I took the liberty of getting that off camera. There's a trick behind getting those off without damaging the rotor. So on these trucks, the rotor actually lives on the back side of the hub. So the rotor stays on. So you can't really get down here to this hub face with the rotor on there. So it makes them difficult to come off. A little trick, and you got to be kind of careful with it. You take the bolt that comes through here on the back side of the hub, and once you take them out, you can thread these back in about 4 or 5 threads. You want to go about 4 or 5 threads. You don't want to be too shallow, or you're going to booger up the threads here. So you want to go in about 4 or 5 threads, and then you can take, I have a sacrificial extension I use for beating on, but your socket, and you put on that bolt, and then you can use a hammer, or in the shop, I use an air hammer. It makes it a lot easier to control, a lot easier to hit it. And you just hit those bolts from the back side with it, and that'll, you know, go for this bolt and then go on that side and just kind of walk it out. And that'll usually get them out of there without causing damage to the hub or the rotor. So it makes them a little bit easier to get out. So we're going to be replacing this U-joint in here. So once you get that hub and everything out, this axle can actually just come all the way out. The hub and everything holds it in there, so it just kind of free floats inside the differential. So we'll get this chalked up in the vise, and I'll show you how we get these U-joints out of there. Now it's a little bit hard to see in there, but on the back side of this U-joint, you get away some of this grease. there's a clip in here. So this little lip right here, this is a clip. And that's what keeps that U-joint in there. So it looks like the end of it's on the other side. So let's rotate around. Oop, get you looking down here at it. There it is. So that's the end of it right here. So we're going to take a punch. I'm going to put it in here at the end of that clip. And we're going to hit it. Sometimes they rust in there. This guy, he greases it pretty good. So you can see that clip right in here is starting to come out. So we'll get this up in here. So that's that clip. It goes in the back side of the U-joint. And you're going to have one on the end of each one of these caps. So you just want to kind of go over all four, get those clips out so we can get that U-joint out. So I'll get the other three out of there and then I'll bring you back. All right, so there's all those clips now out of that U-joint. Now what I like to do, and everybody's going to have their different way of doing this, okay? What I like to do is to keep the vise open. So this middle shaft here just sits here, but you're supporting this outer, okay? And you can take a hammer. Now you got to be careful. You don't want to just whale the snot out of it. You can bend these ears in here, and then your new U-joint won't fit properly, right? So you got to kind of know what you're doing, how hard to hit, where to hit, that sort of thing. You don't want to go too crazy, but you want to hit right here as close to that cap as you can. And we're going to hit it. Now you see that cap starting to come up. That's what we want. We're going to press that cap all the way out. So now that cap's off. You can see we got little needle bearings in there. So now we're going to flip it around and we're going to do the other side. So there's that one. Some of the needle bearings stayed behind on that, but that's fine. We're replacing it anyways. So now with the caps out, this can actually come off. So now you have this guy right here. That's out. We'll get that all cleaned up and ready. We'll set it to the side. And on this one, we don't have that other axle, so we're going to sit that U-joint right here across the two faces of your vise. And then same thing, you're going to hit close to that cap as you can without actually hitting the cap. See, that's why we're replacing it. This cap here had no bearings left in it. They're all gone. So now once we have that out, we can, I might have to go the other way with it because I think the grease zerk's on this side and it's hanging us up. So if we go the other way with it, you can get it to come out. That's your old U-joint out. Pretty simple, straightforward. We're going to get those axle shafts all cleaned up. Get all the old grease off of them and any surface rust that might be there. Then we'll bring you back and we'll show you how to put in the new U-joint. Alright, so we got a new U-joint here. We're going to take our caps off. I had to give that one a little love tap to get it sit in there. You're going to take your cap, you're going to push that U-joint to where it's sticking out because you want it to start in those needle bearings right before you put it in. So, and then I'll sit the cap on the, like that vise, that flat surface of that vise, and kind of similar to the way we took it out. Now, once that becomes flush like that, okay, I'll sometimes use like the corner of the vise right here and just give it a few taps. You don't have to be real hard with it. Okay, but you want to get that ring there, that where your clip's gonna sit. You want to get that past that end. So, and then you're gonna get your other cap. You're gonna set it down like that, and you're gonna work that cap on there. We're gonna take our new clips, and we're gonna slide our clip in there, like that one. Now, when we put that one on, it actually pushed this one a little bit past, so we're not gonna be able to get the clip on that side. So now with this clip in here, we can go ahead and push it back the other way, and it'll push this cap up against that clip. Now, when we do that, you're gonna notice that now it's real stiff to turn. Well, you don't want that. Okay, you don't want it real stiff. What I usually do is kind of the same way you took it out. You don't want to go real heavy with this because you don't want to mar up the ends here. But give it a few taps, just light taps, and see. Now we're good and free again, and you don't have any play in between it. We're right up against those clips. So we're gonna repeat that doing these two. There we go. Last clip is in. So now you have a U-joint and it's nice and smooth. Now it may be a little bit tight this way, so kind of same. We'll chuck it up in here to push it up against the two outer clips. Just a couple light taps. Couple light taps. And now it's smooth as silk. And that's what you want. So let's get it back in the truck. All right, so back over here at the truck, you want to clean your hub face on the wire wheel. Get rid of any of that rust scale that's on there. Get on the inside of it too. It's going to make it a lot easier when you're putting the new the hub back in it. And then when you're putting your axle shaft in it, these splines here at the end, just take a rag, clean them up. You know, maybe in a wire wheel, clean up, make sure there's no dirt, trash in it. You don't want to drag that into the rear end. So then when you're putting this in, kind of use your hand over here through the back side and just kind of support the weight of it. On the inside, all the way down in there, is a seal. It's an inner axle seal, and you don't want to damage that inner axle seal, or you're going to end up having a leak. You're going to be changing that seal out. But we want to basically pick it up to get it into that seal. Just kind of work it in there. And then once you get to the differential, you're going to feel it's going to spline into the differential there. So we're splined in, we're all the way in there. Now we can start assembling the hub. There we go. Now we're just gonna get that all tightened up. And this side is just about done. All right, and that's all back together. So, torque those, always make sure you torque them. New U-joint. All back together. Future self here, this video is getting kind of long, so we're going to split it up and do a part 2, so stick around, and tomorrow you're going to see part 2 posted. Now, we also have some other content coming along. We got some race car updates to do, so stick around for that as well. Hoping to have the race car ready in a couple of weeks, give or take. We're still waiting on a few parts. We also may be taking a little trip to do some reconnaissance work. Right, so we've picked out where we're most likely going to be running the race car, what track. I've never actually spectated or been there before. We've been to a couple other tracks in the area, but this one I've heard good things about, so might do a little sneaky video checking out the track. But if you're liking this video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, ring the notification bell, and share our videos. We really appreciate everyone that watches, and we really enjoy your comments. So leave us some feedback, share it with your friends, put it on Facebook, tell the world. Okay. See ya.